Welcome to Chosen TV Weekly English News. Thank you for joining us for another week of international news, resistance, social struggles, and developments from around the world. My name is Gürkan, and here are this week's headlines. The US aggression targeting Iran continues to escalate, while questions grow over Washington's claims of self-defense. Zionist entity Israel intensified its attacks on Lebanon, including strikes on residential areas and a hospital in Tyre. In Donbass, civilians are killed after a passenger bus is struck by a Ukrainian drone. Shell faces renewed scrutiny over pollution in Nigeria while reporting billions in profits. Bolivia moves to expand emergency powers amid growing protests. Mass demonstrations take place in Albania against a controversial tourism project. Police violence in Netherlands sparks outrage. France records another rise in deaths among the homelessness. And supporters celebrate the first anniversary of Zehra Kurtay's resistance tent in Paris. US imperialism's aggression targeting Iran continues, even though it clearly struck a hard rock. The imperialist bandits carry out missile attacks around the Strait of Hormuz. Iran defended their territory by targeting US bases in Kuwait. The US military even claimed that their actions are self-defense strikes. The distance between the USA and Iran is roughly 12,000 kilometers. How is this self-defense? It's a beggar's belief. Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump opened his mouth again, telling his critics to sit back and relax in a post on Monday, saying it will all work out well in the end. He said Iran really wants to make a deal and it would be a good one for the USA. The war is over, he said in another tense exchange with a senator, as lawmakers on the committee questioned the US strategy for ending the conflict. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman said the US was constantly changing its views and putting forward new or contradictory demands, which he said would naturally prolong negotiations. One person has been killed and more than 60 injured in Iranian drone strikes on Kuwait's international airport, local officials have said. Iran's Islamic Revolution Guard Corps claimed the attack, saying it was in retaliation for US strikes on an Iranian oil tanker and Qasem Island. Iran also said it targeted US bases in the Gulf. CENTCOM added that Iran had fired 2 missiles at Kuwait and 3 at Bahrain, all of which broke apart or were intercepted. The following video taken at Kuwait airport shows the opposite. Iran has damaged 20 US military sites since the start of the war, satellite images and videos show, suggesting the attacks are more extensive than publicly acknowledged. Iran has targeted key facilities across 8 countries in the Middle East since the end of February, causing millions of dollars of damage to state-of-the-art air defense systems, refueling aircraft and radars. Tehran has targeted both US bases and shared military facilities in retaliation to the US-Israel attacks across Iran and Lebanon over the past 3 months. Mojtaba Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader, has sought to highlight his military success in striking US facilities. In a statement on Tuesday, he said the Middle East was no longer a safe place for American bases. While the White House has repeatedly claimed that Iran's military has been almost wiped out, analysts said the damage seen at US facilities suggests that Tehran's counterattacks have been more precise and extensive than American officials have previously acknowledged. A US defense official declined to comment, citing operational security reasons. The US has sought to limit satellite analysis of the conflict by requesting Planet, a major provider, to impose an indefinite restriction on new images of Iran and most of the Middle East. Satellite imagery from other international providers combined with old images from Planet were used to track the damage caused by Iranian attacks. The facilities are in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Bahrain, and Oman. The actual figure could be higher, with some analysts placing the number of bases hit as high as 28. Now to another attack in Lebanon. Zionist occupying forces bombed a hospital once again. The Israeli military carried out an airstrike on Jabal Amel Hospital in the city of Tyre. The attack has drawn condemnation, with critics arguing that the occupying forces continue to kill and commit grave violations of the laws of war and humanitarian principles, showing disregard for established rules and norms. The video footage will show you the attack.
Ясин, ты живой? Суки такие. Ой.
بوجه هون جبل عامل بوجه مصفى جبل عامل.
The Lebanese Health Ministry also said 4 people had been killed and 127 injured when Israeli airstrikes hit buildings next to Jabal Amel Hospital in the city of Tyre on Monday afternoon. 39 hospital staff were among the injured, with 4 in critical condition. At least 3,468 people have been killed in Lebanon since the start of the war, according to the country's health ministry. The UN says more than 1 million people have also registered themselves as displaced in Lebanon, where Israeli evacuation orders cover more than 1/8 of the country. Dr. Wael Moray, the hospital's director, had spent the evening dealing with the aftermath. We were working with patients and displaced people. Business was as usual, and suddenly, boom, he said. It happened without any prior warning. Picture speaks volumes. The Israeli enemy targets journalists, ambulance workers, medical staff. It makes no difference, and all it wants is to kick us out of our country, he said. Hezbollah's military wing said its fighters had targeted Israeli tanks and troops in the southern Lebanese town of Hadata, Bayada, and Zavtar el-Shargiya with drones, missiles, and shells. Hezbollah has released footage showing 2 Ababil drones targeting an Israeli military position and a Humvee near the historic Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon. We now turn to developments in Donbas. 8 people have been killed and 10 others injured after a drone hit a passenger bus traveling through Donetsk region. The bus was struck in the early hours of Wednesday as it was traveling between a city near Moscow and Simferopol in Crimea. Ukrainian military refused to comment, of course. In eastern Donetsk, Russian investigators said they had opened a criminal case into what they described as a terrorist attack on civilians. Svetlana Petrenko, spokesperson for the Russian Investigative Committee, said authorities were working to establish the identities of those responsible for the strike. 53 people had been registered to travel on the bus, Reuters reports. However, none of the victims' identities have been released yet. Next to Nigeria. Shell pumped oil through Nigeria pipeline for years despite pollution evidence, documents show. Residents of the riverine community of Bill say their livelihoods have been lost because of oil pollution. British multinational Shell continued operating a major oil pipeline in Nigeria for years, even though it knew it was causing widespread pollution, despite a warning from its own staff, its own technical standards, and internal documents. The files, including emails and presentations, reveal that a senior Shell executive cautioned as early as 2008 about the risks of continuing to pump millions of barrels of unrefined fuel through one of the company's main pipelines in Africa's biggest oil producer. Across Nigeria's oil-rich southern Niger delta, decades of oil spills have left a landscape deeply scarred with wetlands increasingly coated in crude and contaminated sediment. The pipeline, which Shell sold last year, was one of the biggest, most expensive, and ultimately most problematic bits of infrastructure in Nigeria. It was capable of carrying up to 150,000 barrels of oil a day, but was repeatedly hit by spills and targeted by illegal oil thieves. Before 2011, here was a beautiful area. People play here and go into the river. We used to fish around here, but because of the damage have caused, nobody is fishing. Because of that, I have become poor. I eat more hand to mouth, said Balafama Augustus Bruce, a 64-year-old fisherman in Bill. According to the UN, since 1958, when Shell sent its first shipment of oil from Nigeria, at least 13 million barrels or 1.5 million tons of crude oil have been spilled in at least 7,000 incidents. Campaigners have long tried to hold multinational oil firms accountable for environmental damage there. A vocal critic of Shell was Ken Saro-Wiwa, one of the Nigeria's leading writers, who was notoriously executed by then military government in 1995 after leading demonstrations against the pollution in his Ogoniland region of the Niger Delta. Along with 8 other campaigners, Mr. Saro-Wiwa was convicted of murder, then hanged in 1995 by then military regime. Their execution sparked outrage within the international community. It was widely condemned as extrajudicial murder and became a global symbol of the struggle against environmental injustice and repression. Many believe the activists were being punished for leading protests against the operations of oil multinationals, particularly Shell, in Nigeria's Ogoniland. Shell has long denied any involvement in the executions. Shell, which began commercial production of oil in Nigeria in 1958, sold off its remaining onshore assets last year. They are not concerned about what happens to us. Their concern is to continue to make profit, said Chief Bomarener Dapa, the spokesperson for the Bill Local Leaders Council, explaining how people's livelihoods had been wiped out and unknown health consequences. An investigation has uncovered allegations that energy giant Shell has ignored repeated warnings that a controversial cleanup operation of oil-polluted areas of southern Nigeria has been beset by problems and corruption. The multinational headquarters in London, along with the Nigerian government, has repeatedly stated that work to clean up oil-contaminated sites of Ogoniland, which kicked off around 8 years ago, is going well. One close observer has described the cleanup project as a con and a scam that has wasted money and left the people of Ogoniland, which lies in the Niger Delta, continuing to live with the devastating impact of oil pollution. 13 years after a groundbreaking UN report lifted the lid on the seriousness of their situation. Shell's most recently reported profit was $6.9 billion in adjusted earnings for the first quarter of 2026, its highest quarterly profit in about 2 years. From Nigeria, we move to South America. Congress in Bolivia has passed a bill which will make it easier for the president to declare a state of emergency and deploy soldiers to quell protests. The move comes after almost a month of roadblocks and demonstrations by miners, farmers, and indigenous groups which are demanding President Rodrigo Paz to resign. The protests started at the end of April and were originally triggered by a land reform proposed by Paz. Some small-scale farmers were worried the measure would make it easier for large landowners to buy up small properties. The government insisted any sale would have to be voluntary, but powerful organizations representing small-scale farmers were not convinced and blocked the country's main highways in protest. Paz has since scrapped the reform, but by then the farmers had been joined by other sectors of society venting their grievances. Now to Albania. Albania is not for sale to Israel or the United States. Thousands of people gathered at a rally in Tirana, the capital of Albania, to protest the sale of a beach in town of Zvenec to Israeli and American investors as part of a tourism development project. The planned tourism project in the Zvenec area of Vlore, Albania, was met with protests by thousands of demonstrators under the slogan "Albania is not for sale." During the demonstrations, police at times used pepper spray against the crowd. Following the events, Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama stated that the project is proceeding in full compliance with all legal and environmental procedures. Posts circulating on social media claim that the site has been sold to Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, the daughter and son-in-law of Donald Trump. Next, to the Netherlands. In an incident at Amsterdam airport Schiphol, a pregnant woman and her husband, who were being held pending deportation after allegedly violating border regulations, were struck by police officers and placed in handcuffs behind their backs. Despite the emergence of video footage that clearly shows the abuse of the woman and her husband, Dutch police stated that the woman's fall to the ground occurred during a struggle related to her refusal to board the aircraft, rather than as a result of deliberate violence by officers. Police further stated that her husband, whom they accuse of resisting and physically confronting officials, was restrained with rear handcuffs in accordance with established procedures. The incident is clearly showing that the police were attacking the woman and her husband defending her. Here is the footage. The Dutch police are in competition with their German counterparts in how to get the reward of torturing those who condemn the occupation of Palestine and the genocide. The police confronted students at Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam who were holding a demonstration in support of Palestine. The forceful police intervention against the students sparked criticism and public backlash. Here is how they tried to deserve the trophy of the most brutal racist police force in Europe. Here we go.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Calm down!
So
fucking violent!
Now to France. In France, at least 929 homeless people died in 2025. This figure exceeds the 912 deaths recorded in 2024. Experts point out that the number of deaths among homeless people has been rising year after year, warning that the total could soon surpass 1,000. And finally, a positive story from Paris. Zehra Kurtay's victory celebrated on the first anniversary of the Paris Resistance Tent. A celebration was held to mark the first anniversary of the resistance tent established by Zehra Kurtay, who protested against imperialism through a 219-day hunger strike and succeeded in overturning a deportation order to Turkey through her campaign. The event was enlivened by performances from artistic groups including Grup Yorum, Fanfare Invisible, and Percussion 75. Long live resistance! Long live victory. That brings us to the end of this week's Chosen TV Weekly English News. Thank you for watching. Please share our reports and follow Chosen TV for more news and analysis from around the world. From all of us here in Chosen TV, thank you for your support. See you at the end of next week. Goodbye.